Welcome to the Education Corner, a podcast by Education Choices magazine.
Education Corner podcast would like to welcome Mr. Tom Rogerson, Headmaster of Cottesmore School, Mrs. Sarah Sutherland, Senior Deputy Head of Windlesham House School, Mr. Dominic Oliver, Headmaster at Lancing College, and Mrs. Niamh Green, Head at Roedean School. Cottesmore School is an award-winning academic boarding prep school for boys and girls in West Sussex, less than an hour from London. Cottesmore has been preparing children for major public schools since 1894, providing excellent preparation for senior boarding schools who share Cottesmore's belief in nurturing a rounded, dynamic individual. The school believes that endeavour and fun are the most important elements of intellectual life and that success follows discovery and purposefulness. Established in 1837, Windlesham House School is the oldest prep school in the country and was the first prep school to become co-educational in 1967. Located on a 65-acre estate on the South Downs, today the school aims to balance its rich history and tradition with a modern outlook. Whether day or boarding, all Windlesham House pupils benefit from the school's open-minded approach, from the non-uniform policy to the choice of over 200 co-curricular activities. Sat in 550 acres of the South Downs National Park and just 10 miles from Brighton and Hove, Lancing College is a co-educational boarding and day school for pupils aged 13 to 18. With some 600 pupils, its vibrant school offers plenty of opportunity for fun and friendship, alongside a strong sense of community. In addition to academic excellence, inspiration and enrichment for every pupil, Lancing College also offers 120 different clubs and activities for their co-curricular programme, with a vast array of possibilities to explore, enhance and challenge the mind and body. Roedean is a day and boarding school for girls aged 11 to 18. It provides a distinctive academic, high-quality, all-round education within a caring and friendly community in a wonderful coastal setting. Roedean aims to inspire and challenge every student to develop her strengths and passions, to seek the highest academic and personal standards for herself, and to develop a strong foundation for her future. It's an absolute pleasure to have you all on our Education Corner podcast. Now, firstly, beginning with Sarah, talking about Windlesham, would you like to introduce yourself and your school?
Good afternoon, Chloe. I'm Sarah, and as the Senior Deputy Head at Windlesham, I have been in the school for 13 years now, in a number of different roles, from reception teacher all the way up to Senior Deputy Head. Windlesham is a place that is vibrant and has a family feel, with key entry points from reception, year 3 and year 7.
And a place I love to visit. And Tom, can you tell us a little bit about Cottesmore?
Hello, thank you so much for having me, Chloe. This is very, very exciting to be with such brilliant heads and also a brilliant host. Thanks for having us. Thanks for having Cottesmore. My name is Tom Rogerson, and I am the headmaster of a boarding prep school called Cottesmore School on the Surrey and Sussex border, but we're in West Sussex. And I have been here for 17 years. Actually, I've been here for 49 years, but that's another story. But I've been here for 17 years. And we've been through an enormous amount of change, I think we can all say, in those 17 years. But many, many things stay the same, as we're saying, the family feel, the broad academic education, but also the broad education in other areas of the school other than academics. And so we are a boarding school. We get outside an awful lot. We're very creative, but we like to have a lot of fun. And that's one of the hallmarks of Cottesmore.
Thank you. And Niamh, can you tell us a little bit about Roedean?
Yes, so my name's Niamh Green, and I've got the privilege and the honour of being the head at Roedean School. I have been here now for a year and a half. They arrived in April 23. It's an incredible school. It's girls 11 to 18. It's a real mix between our local community and our national and more global community. And that's really important to us, is that feel of that global community. We're just outside the vibrant city of Brighton. So we're on a secure site, which the parents enjoy, and we're close to Brighton, which the girls enjoy.
And finally, Dominic, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Lancing?
Hi, good to see you and hear you, Chloe. My name's Dominic Oliver. I've been head here at Lancing College for the last 10 years. I'm in my 11th year here. Lancing is a school with a very long history. We celebrated our 175th anniversary last year. It's got a Harry Potter feel as you look at it. It's got this enormous Gothic spaces, but it's also got a kind of contemporary, witty edge to how the education is undertaken here. We're actually at our record ever pupil number this year. We're at 612. We're squeezing people in, very high demand. Academic results are on a roll as well. We had record GCSE results last year, and we've had a sequence of similarly record years in A-level as well. The community here is a really interesting mix of the local. We've got 200 day students and 400 plus boarders, and the national and regional and international. And it's quite a cosmopolitan place. So 70% of the school is from here in the UK. The other 30% comes from 45 different countries, and we celebrate that cosmopolitanism and diversity in the school. We think of ourselves as preparing people to go out into a world and a world of work where they're going to encounter people from all around the globe, be that in the workplace, at university, or elsewhere. And there's a real buzz in the air. I'll look forward to telling you more about that as we go through today's podcast.
Thank you so much. What can you share with us about the selection process at your schools? Obviously, there's different entry points, so we'll begin with the prep. And what you feel you are looking for in the children that you select. And perhaps if we begin with you, Tom.
So empathetic is a word that I think would describe how we help the children to enter Cottesmore empathetically. So in essence, the very straight answer, or the very sort of ordinary answer, is a maths and English exam, and come and meet us and bum around the school and have a lovely time, and we can get to know each other. If there are, these things called CAT scores or other scores, if we have those, and then we receive them and we can read them and understand the data that we've been given, then sometimes we can organise for a transfer, or this child to come to Cottesmore without too much more, 3 hours of diametric testing is not what we particularly want for the child, but sometimes it is necessary if we don't receive information that we need. So that's it. The most important thing is to be here, to be part of the community for a short while, and do the English and maths test if necessary. 8 is the point of entry. We're a boarding school, and so it's possible we would consider entry after that. But generally speaking, 8. And sometimes Londoners feel that London might be getting a bit small for them, or that they need a bit more exercise, or they need a little bit more outdoor space. And so if we have a place, or if we can accommodate them, we might offer them a place after that.
Thank you. And Sarah?
The selection process at Windlesham is many and varied and tailored to the individual age and stage of the pupils that we welcome to our school community. So we look very carefully at pupils who are committed, enthusiastic, creative, and willing to embrace everything that Windlesham has to offer. With our key entry point at reception, that process is very different to entry in the prep school, of course. We want to make sure that we do a lot with our new reception pupils out of school in their current nurseries and their homes before they join us at school, so that they feel comfortable with shared experiences with our staff before we even bring them into school. Then we would have stay and play sessions, and offers would be sent from there. For all other entry points, we welcome children in any year group, providing we have the space. And again, that is tailored to each individual child. So we would look at taster days, ensuring that pupils have a really good opportunity to come and see what Windlesham has to offer, what they can experience from the extracurricular to the academic offering as well. We would look at, for our international pupils, we would be having online interviews with them. We would have taster days or overnight stays to ensure that our prospective boarding pupils do enjoy time in the boarding houses and our evening activities, whilst we also look at previous school reports, any assessment data that we have from previous schools as well. We want to make sure that we are the right setting for each individual child and that they are right for us as well. So it's a very bespoke and tailored approach to entry at Windlesham.
As some of my clients already know. And Dominic, tell us a little bit about Lancing.
We've got a process of admissions which is meant to match how we teach and ask people to learn, which is to take that kind of sense of the young person in the round. So yes, we're interested in test scores and so on, but that's only part of the data. We'd like to welcome people to come and experience what it's like to be here. So that's some time spent in our beautiful grounds. It's time spent talking to people. They're called interviews, but they're more conversational than that. We give people some stuff to have a look at and maybe write about, maybe talk about in groups, and have a lot of fun into the process as well. We ran an admissions day the other day where they were playing with molten metal to make Christmas decorations as part of what we were dealing with, to see how they were getting on with one another and how practical they were. They had a great time. Our admissions points are for year 9 primarily in the senior school. We do have 2 prep schools as well, but that's a different story. But year 9 primarily. We tend to get people coming to do a pre-test in year 6, the same pre-test ISEBs, things that lots of prep schools and others prepare for. If you haven't been in a prep school, you can still do those tests. You can still be assessed for here. We make allowances for that. We make all of that work. And we do have people joining us from the state sector. That might not be right for every individual, and I'm sure Tom and Sarah have said this. I bet Niamh says something similar. Sometimes you need a different sort of system, or not a system at all. You just need that bespoke approach, and we're very much about that, because the size of Lancing is such that we've got amazing facilities, but we're small enough for people to be known. And we want families to feel that sense of being known as they come for assessment. It's a big, big decision. We also actually actively recruit into year 10, because for some families in some locations, maybe more boarders than local day pupils, that's appropriate for them. There's a lot of people who want to come at that point. We have people who come for a year, sometimes from Germany, and they're incredible additions to the community in year 11, but that's a very small number. And then the school grows again in the 6th form. We have people joining us at the top of the school and into year 12. So I think for me, one of the changes that's happened over the last decade really is that things that were quite fixed have become much more flexible and focused on what families need and what the school needs, and that necessary flexibility, because it's the 21st century. We're not all operating to a kind of machine with angles. We're talking about young people and their futures.
And it's so much more transient now. And Niamh, tell us about Roedean.
Really, like Dominic, Sarah and Tom have already said, it's all about the individual. So I think all of our schools align on that, and we do actually work quite closely together on that. So we've got 3 main entry points. So we've got 11 plus, 13 plus, and then, like Dominic said, 16 plus at the A level, we will also have entry. We do have girls coming at other times due to different reasons, family reasons, etc., but they would be our main 3 entry points. We've got our standard entry points, and then we've got what we call early entry. So our early entry would be year 5 or year 7 place, and year 6 for year 9 place. Otherwise, it's the standard setting, and those all happen in January. And as well as that, obviously, we've got the scholarship offer, which is a huge plus for our families as well. I think for us, what we're looking for in the girls that join Roedean and in the families that join us as a community is that really they want to be part of the community, that it's not just about an academic education, but it's about everything else that comes with coming to Roedean as a whole community. So that the girls really want to make the most of everything that's on offer, and that the families really get stuck into our community. Even those from a further afield, that's really important as well, that we have those really strong connections with families from overseas. Tom and I were just in Hong Kong recently doing our different events. I know Dominic has been around, and Ben, and we often see each other on the circuit, because I think actually the families that become part of the community, it is for life. So I think that's what we're looking for within the girls coming here, and just really want to get stuck in. So we are academically selective insofar as the girls have to be able to thrive here. And that is really important, that they feel they're going to actually make the most of what they have here on offer, that they're actually going to try new things, whether it be academic, but actually with all of our schools, I think we'll say that actually what happens outside the classroom is just as important to us as what happens inside the classroom. And actually those talents and passions that get ignited, whether it be outside in the sports field, in the art department, climbing in DOV, all those passions come together to make that child at the end that goes on then to really have a fulfilling journey of education further afield.
It all sounds amazing. Going from there, what do you feel, and I'm going to start with Sarah for this one, are the benefits of being in Sussex? Having only visited Windlesham very recently, I think it's around May time, I certainly know it's a stunning drive there.
I think you can't not mention the space that we have. We benefit from having that countryside, being in the South Downs, but we are also close enough to London that it's not too long a commute. We're close enough to the sea, so the children can go and sit on the beach and enjoy being by the seaside. We're half an hour from Brighton, so with a vibrant community in Brighton, we're very, very close to there, whilst also having the historical elements such as Arundel very, very close by as well. We literally have it all.
Tom, go on, share with me. Again, having visited, I think, in the last year, I certainly know it's stunning where you are.
I like to think of Sussex as a very balanced place. I think it's a lovely community. We're in the north, so we're sort of knocking on the door of Surrey. It takes 30 minutes on the train to get to Victoria. And yet, you've been, Chloe, you come into the school and you walk out of the back into the Rose Garden and you see the most extraordinary view over to Box Hill and the North Downs. As we've already said, it's the space. It's another school across the way. They call it Blue Health. And we're all reasonably near, some nearer than others, some practically in the sea. You have that blue health element going on. You have that dynamism of being near the sea. Sussex by the sea is the phrase. It's a really wonderful, balanced place to be. And it's a joy, that the countryside-ness, but also being near to the sea, but also being balanced with the towns nearby, some really beautiful towns. So Petworth and Pulborough and Winnie to Horsham. It's a wonderful, balanced place to be.
Niamh, tell us a little bit about Roedean and your location.
So as Tom alluded to, we're on the sea practically, like that, on the cliffs. And I think, it's a stunning location. I don't think from a view point of view, when you open your curtains in the morning as a boarder or as a member of staff, we're very lucky that what we see is the sea. I mean, this weekend, even with the storms, we go into complete lockdown, so the girls can't go in between running around the houses. But actually, even just that, just the fresh air you get, I think is incredible. I think the difference then, when you're younger and you go to Windlesham House and Cottesmore, that is the kind of idyllic childhood, all that space. And then when they become teenagers, they come further along to Lancing and Roedean, where they've got that balance between the space, but actually then the city as well. I think, as we all alluded to, we're only an hour from London, so we have an escort, as I'm sure the others do as well. So we girls get a train up with staff members, especially for the younger ones, on a Friday, and then it comes back on a Sunday. But it also means that the older students are able to be much more independent, not only going into Brighton, but also into London at the weekend. But I think you kind of get the best of both worlds, as you've got that fresh air, you've got all that space that you can live in and work with, but close enough then to be back in London or in a city.
Very much so. And finally, Dominic.
The other guys have said virtually all I would say, I think. But I think that the key here, and I know it applies in all of our schools, is that sense of spaciousness. We've got the sea on one side and the downs behind us. You can ride a horse into the downs from the Lancing Equestrian Centre. It's kind of crazy, really. But it's that sense not just of physical space, but of intellectual and creative space. So you've got the proximity to cities, whether that's Brighton or London, to airports if you need to get to Gatwick is half an hour. All of that is very, very close. I mean, it's sort of paradisial, really, for school environments, because you do have that sense of stimulus, space, safety, and it is incredibly beautiful in this area. It's hard to beat. When you go to other places, you want to come back here.
Yeah, and I think the fact that you've got the sea, you've got the countryside, you've got the downs, but you do have the connections. So for international parents and parents living in London, you're not so far away that they've got to think about having a second home. They're still within reach. I think that has a real appeal to them. Now, roughly how many parents or families do you feel at your schools live locally, compared to pupils whose families live further afield, either in the UK or as international parents? It's an interesting question, really, because I think this is something that is increasingly changing. Tom?
So generally speaking, we're about a third, we're slightly more at the moment, but usually we're about a third from London. And that's families who are living and boarding. That's our main function as a school. And about a third of them come from the home counties, and about a third of them fly in, including British expats who might be business people, or they might be in the forces, or they might be in the diplomatic services. So it's about that split at Cottesmore.
And Sarah?
About 50% of our pupils are classed as local families, and we look at that being about up to a 45-minute commute, so to speak, to Windlesham. And to be able to facilitate that and support our families, we have bus services from Petworth, Brighton, Horsham, and all of the stops along the way. Then we have about 10% of our pupils from London. And again, to support those, we have our London bus service, which leaves school on a Friday afternoon and returns to school on a Sunday evening. 15% of our pupils are international from across the world, from China, Korea, Nigeria, Russia, Spain, and everywhere in between. And we currently have pupils from just over 20 different countries as part of our school community. And then the final 25% of our community is made up from other families across the UK.
So quite a wide spread. And Dominic?
Massively widespread. We run bus routes all over the county, from as far afield as Chichester one way, and up in the north another way. Lots of people leap on those. And then we have people, including boarders, probably about half who either could be day pupils or actually are day pupils. Quite a lot of people live locally but like the idea of boarding. And then we have boarders who are from further afield, including a good chunk from London. And then, as I mentioned before, people from all over the rest of the world who make up the sort of final 30% or so. It's a really good mixture. It's eclectic. And actually, that's partly speaks to what we want from the community. We don't want homogeneity. We want that kind of variety and difference, and families who've come from that kind of sense of, I want something that's reflective of the world. That's what they feel they get here.
Yeah, and you feel it when you come to the school, and my parents feedback and say the same. And Niamh?
We have about half our community are day and half are boarding. Like Lancing, we've got buses that go out to the Sussex countryside and bring them in every day. But a lot of those girls will then start to maybe flexiboard as well. So we do offer flexiboarding, which is like a 3 nights a week, which families like to have that kind of flexibility within the school week. Then we also have our weekly boarders, mostly from London. And then our full boarders are also from kind of wider range. I think from the UK, we go as far as Yorkshire and across to Wiltshire. And then we've got our overseas, which is, again, a mixture of girls who live overseas, expats community, or girls from about 40 different countries from around the world.
Obviously, we all know that the 11 plus, 13 plus admissions processes are a cause of worry to many parents and children. So this is really a question for Sarah and Tom. How do you pair the children, and what are some of the most popular destination schools for your pupils? One of the things, obviously, by having you all here, I imagine that there's a lot of communication between yourselves and Lancing College, Roedean, and many of the other Sussex schools, to name but a few.
So it's a bit more simple for us because we leave at 13, and parents who come to Cottesmore come because they know that that's the leaving point. So the discussions or the toing and froing doesn't necessarily happen as much as maybe somewhere else, because they know that this is the type of school we are. And, you know, it's something that we happen to really strongly believe in, and that the 13 plus leaving has a huge amount of benefits to it. And so that's how we deal with it. What schools do we send on to? All of these fantastic senior schools we have here, Lancing and Roedean, and where the child is going to thrive. We don't have particular schools that we send on to. We're a boarding school. And so you can imagine that the parents need a boarding community for their child to go on to. And so the usual suspects for boarding schools. 11 to 13, lots of people have got to make some good decisions about that. But at Cottesmore, it's a 13 situation for us.
And Sarah?
Similar to Cottesmore, the majority of our pupils do have 13 plus entry, but preparation is key for every entry point. And that is, one of the most important jobs of being a prep school, that you are preparing pupils for their next stages. So we work really hard with our pupils and our curriculum design. We have study skills lessons for our pupils from year 5 to make sure that they are fully prepared for the ISEB pre-tests in year 6. Those lessons support the pupils not just in understanding the verbal, non-verbal elements of the pre-test, but also that preparation for practice interviews, for mock assessment days, so that pupils are really well-rounded and prepared for what they are going to experience when they have entry into their senior schools. Being a 13 plus entry, when most of our pupils do have their places agreed from the ISEB, we then have the benefit of, we've moved away from common entrance, so that we have our bespoke Windlesham diploma now, which is a curriculum that is designed exactly to prepare our pupils for the future. We have project-based learning, we have presentations, we have all sorts of opportunities for our pupils to be able to excel in the learners that they are. We also have our Lessons for Life curriculum, which started last year, which encompasses entrepreneurship, financial planning and budgeting, charitable endeavours, which again are supporting our pupils with their forward journeys into the future.
Thank you very much. Now, at Roedean, you admit pupils from the age of 11, whereas at Lancing College, pupils will start at 13, although obviously I do know, Dominic, that there are the 2 prep schools also. What do you each feel are the benefits of starting senior school at 11 or 13, respectively? Perhaps, Dominic, if you start.
Well, the first thing I'd like to say actually is that we operate slightly different models, but we operate really excellent models. And what Roedean does is fantastic. And actually, we're collaborating at the moment on one particular co-curricular thing about the CCF, for example. There's a lot of partnership here. You'll hear more from Niamh, but that's a long-standing model for girls to go at age 11. Where Lancing comes from, for its 175 years, is that we believe in the old-fashioned prep school structure, not because it's old-fashioned, but because it offers a kind of golden time to extend childhood, a golden time to actually be pushed and to lead at that point, get to the top of that environment, feel enriched by it, and then make that move just as adolescence is really getting going and getting complicated. Not to say it doesn't happen earlier for lots of people. And that's a kind of really exciting point to take people into the college. So I think it's the kind of phasing, really, and the fact that in the UK, in the maintained sector, the state sector, there's been that shifting to and fro at various points between stopping at 11, having a middle school structure and so on. I think there's a lot of debate to be had about it. Perhaps the key is that you're going from the right school to the right school at whatever point is right for you. One of the things we all talked about was the individualized, bespoke nature of how schools function nowadays. It's about each individual young person, they're people, and finding the right path for them. And here, it's been 13, and we really believe in it. And we support our own prep schools, but we also engage with prep schools who send people to us as well, obviously, because we have a massively wide range of feeds. So I'm proud of the fact that we have a start at 13, and we get lots of people saying, can we come to you at 11? And we say, well, you can come to our day preps and we'd love to do more. But actually, I can see how it works in other ways. The extension of childhood, I think, is such an important thing, because it's gone so fast. And whatever age that stops, it's really important to help them develop.
I think a lot of it as well is steeped in British history, and obviously there was a difference between the sexes. So, Niamh, do you want to explain to us kind of at Roedean how things are working?
Yeah, so I think, as you said, it's that tradition, whereas girls' schools, where prep schools were mostly kind of girls and boys separated back in the day. That's why it was always an 11 plus. Traditionally, girls' schools started at 11 plus because the prep schools finished at 11 plus. So we've continued to that because we still have obviously our local girls from primary schools that come where they stop at 11 plus, and quite a few of the London day girls prep schools will finish at that age as well. So that is one of our main entries. However, a lot of girls now go to these co-ed prep schools that now finish at 13 plus. like Cottesmore and Windlesham House. So we do kind of work closely with them, to have that entry point for the girls at 13 plus. We also try to reassure families that 13 plus is also another big entry point for us. The 7 and 8 is very much what we call like lower schools. So they have 7 and 8, they eat kind of together in the dining room, the tutors together. And then at year 9, there's a whole new entry of girls. So they get a new tutor, they eat in the big dining room, etc., etc. So there is 2 very distinct entry points. And one of the reasons we have that year 6 early entry for year 9 is I think the parents sometimes get nervous going, well, you're in 11 plus school. Are we going to be able to come at 13 plus? And we're saying, yes, please rest assured that there is 2 very distinctive entry points for your daughters, and it has to be right for where she is now, so she can become, head girl at a prep school, get all that amazing things that happen at those last 2 years at prep school, and then still come to us at year 9.
Yeah, and it works very well, particularly for those London schools that do finish at 11 as well, and many of them do. Roedean is also an all-girls school. So sorry to put you on the spot here, Niamh, as obviously in our company, everyone else is mixed. How do you feel the pupils are benefiting from being in that single-sex environment?
Well, I think gone are the days where, the girls are kind of jolly hockey sticks. They are really ambitious. I'd love to say that we live in a completely co-ed and equal world out there, but we know that we've still got quite a way to go. And I think for some, being in a single-sex school, they're able to really find their voice and leave school at the age of 18, having found it, that confidence and having grown. I think the idea that everything is geared towards them, so all the learning is geared towards how girls learn, all the leadership roles are for them. 40% of our girls go on to do science-related subjects at university, which kind of bucks the trends as overall. And I think everything we do is geared towards the girls and what they do. That doesn't mean that they don't mix or socialise. As Dominic said, so we do the CCF with Lancing, we do Oxbridge preparation with Lancing. So we do quite a bit with Lancing. We also do socials with Tunbridge School. So there is that connection. And I think these days, the girls, having been to Cottesmore, Windlesham House, have those connections. One positive of social media is that they stay connected much better and for much longer with friends they've made. So I think those connections are still there. But I don't think when they leave Roedean, I don't think they're in any doubt of the power of their voice and the power of them to represent females, not only themselves, but actually other females within the world. And actually their position and their fight towards those positions are just as equal.
That's fantastic stuff. We're hoping to include something about the Unilever project, trying to give girls better confidence and body image. So it all ties in very nicely. The world and our communities are increasingly diverse and global. How do you, as heads, ensure that this is represented and included in your curriculum and school life? And perhaps if we begin with Sarah.
You only have to walk around Windlesham to see how diverse our community is. It's very representative of the world, and our pupils benefit from having those connections with children from different backgrounds, different cultures, different nationalities, speaking different languages. So when you walk around Windlesham, you can see that diverse feeling. As far as curriculum is concerned, we ensure that we are supporting our pupils who speak English as an additional language, but we also have recently introduced, as opposed to having our languages department, we now have our languages, culture and linguistic department, which actually goes one step further than just learning an additional language. We look at the culture of our different backgrounds, and that starts in the pre-prep. Our pre-prep world languages program enables our pupils to learn a different world language every term. So we are celebrating the languages that we have in our community. We look at those first and enable our pupils to then celebrate their home languages, their home cultures, and it's a cultural immersion program. So they will understand the geography, the festivities, the celebrations, and all of that encompasses individual home cultures. And then that builds up into the prep school, where they're looking at, again, the culture and the linguistic elements of the diverse world around them. And on top of that, we celebrate the diversity that we have in everything we do. We recently had Asia Day. We have, as everybody will have done, European World Day of Languages, but we go into, for example, our dining hall, and the pupils can vote on which country they want the food from the next week. So there are lots and lots of opportunities to celebrate that cultural diversity that we have in the community.
Thank you, Sarah. And Tom?
I think you've got to say food. I think probably we'll all say food, which is obviously the best bit, dancing sometimes. The headline at Cottesmore is World Awareness Week. We're pretty aware of the world most of the time, but we're even more aware of the world in World Awareness Week. What did we do? We did Tibet and Bhutan this year, which was super cool. Everybody learns to dance, traditional dance of the country. We've done India, obviously we've done France, we've done England. So we had that. And then sometimes we have World Awareness evenings, and that's on a Saturday night. And everybody gets to vote what we eat. And hopefully we'll get some delicious Chinese food. We're big fans, and various other things. And so we are promoting inclusion and diversity in those ways. As we've said already, I think just simply being in Cottesmore, you can walk around and you can see that there's a unity. Somebody might be from Paris, as I say, quite a lot of Londoners. Somebody might be from Hong Kong. And it's that unity that really, really counts, that community and unity of purpose. And I think that's a very, very important part of it. So understanding what we're doing together, but also being very tolerant and very interested in each other's cultures. So we drive it through World Awareness Week and World Awareness evenings. Obviously, languages are a huge part of all of our schools. And our main academic language is French, which is fairly traditional. We also have people learning German and Spanish, and we have had people learning Danish and Chinese and various other languages as well. So we're keen beans, and we're very open to all cultures, and we're very much bringing people together, but also respecting each other's cultures. Yeah.
And Dominic, I know this is a huge part of the work at Lancing, isn't it?
It's integral to how we function. So that would be everything from the kind of metacognitive discussion you have with debate. I teach all the Year 9 students debating, and a big part of that is listening to one another, different perspectives. It might be about something really huge and big, and about something they get to choose what they're going to argue about, discuss in those sessions. And that could be all kinds of cultural difference, and it regularly is. We just had a massive thing to do with the United States presidential election. The Lancing presidential election might not have gone quite the same way as the one that happened in the US, but it was very hard fought, courteously fought, with perspectives from all around the world. Yes, feasts and food and celebrations, different cultural events, very, very important, whether that's the Day of the Dead, Chinese New Year. Those are things that the whole school enjoys together. Languages, big part of things here. I'm sure that my colleagues on the call here would agree. It's a sort of some kind of strange existential threat to cultural exchange, that languages are under so much threat. And our boys and girls who are doing so much science, many of them also study languages. The range Tom has mentioned, but people doing Japanese and Dutch and all sorts of things who are non-native speakers, very, very exciting. The general ebb and flow of the school is one whether it's curricular or outside the curriculum, you get that sense of the world in the place as well as us going out into the world. And that might be through speakers and all kinds of, there's a massive speaker program here for people all over the world too. Sometimes they dial in, sometimes they actually come in. But I'll give you one unusual example. I think we've just had this incredible film gala festival, and there are two alumni who have both won 2 Oscars. One of which, Christopher Hampton, has just sponsored this incredible house filmmaking competition. So every house, so there are 10 houses, made its own movie with the help of a professional writing, direction, and editing crew. And they produced this incredible range of movies. Some of them were kind of internationally inflected, some of them very much about school and school life, some of them spoofs, some of them very teenagey. But that wonderful range was inflected by the sense you get a real feeling that the school is full of people with very different interests, but who come together to celebrate one another and challenge one another too. I love the fact that there is a lot of challenge in how this works, because education needs to push and help people to move forwards. And that's what's exciting about what happens here.
And it is fantastic. And Niamh, tell us about what's happening at Roedean.
concur with everything everybody said. We kind of do within the curriculum, the diversity within the curriculum, as well as outside the curriculum. I'm a linguist, so I fight very hard for languages, and the girls can do a huge range of languages when they come here, as well as the ones in the curriculum, outside the curriculum as well. I think we're lucky enough, as we've said before, living next to Brighton, which is a really diverse and global community. So we do quite a lot of partnership work within the local community, where we're going out to the local community, whether it be with charities, with the local schools. I think having girls from around 40 different countries with one common thing, our common language is English, but they also offer lots of different languages. So we also offer that to our local primary schools if they've got new children coming in or families coming in, maybe with refugee status from different countries. We have girls sometimes from those countries or speak those languages, so they can go down. Last year our Iranian girl went down with an Iranian family and built up that partnership with that family who had just come over as refugees. And I think so that's really important, I think, for all of our schools, is that we remind their children about giving and being part of that global community, and that they are fortunate to be at our schools, but actually giving back to that community is also really important.
Thank you. Now, this is a Sussex Schools podcast, and obviously all of you have amazing schools, but is there anything further that you'd like to add about why parents should come and visit your school? Perhaps, Tom, if we begin with you.
Because we put on an amazing tea. So you should come and eat all of our delicious tea. And as I say, bomb around, run around. The children can come down and feel at home, but come and eat our delicious tea. That's what I would say. It seems very traditional, Cottesmore, but as soon as you come through the door, and I think most people on this podcast have, you'll sense a very warm and very family feeling. And I think that is the calling card. That is most important. Obviously, there's the academic piece, which is hugely important. There's everything that surrounds the academic piece, which is the co-curricular and the sport, in order to feed into that academic success. But fundamentally, it's all about connection. It's all about fun. It's all about the warmth. And come and have a cup of tea and a slice of cake. See you soon, hopefully.
Thank you. And Sarah?
I'm asked this question a lot, actually, and to sum up what Windlesham offers for our children, and simply in one word, I would say childhood. Those opportunities to be outside, similar to Cottesmore, running in the fields, climbing trees, building dens, but also that freedom to make choices, to be in the art room, the DT room, the library, all of those different opportunities for pupils to find their thing. We give them, from the extracurricular opportunities, we give them so many opportunities to try new things, new subjects, new hobbies, that when they leave us, they really have a good sense of what they're good at. And it might not be something that's traditional. It could be knitting, it could be DT, it could be anything, horse riding, scuba diving, you name it. But I think it's about that childhood and keeping that innocence of childhood whilst also preparing the children for the future.
I loved seeing all the children climbing in the trees the last time I was there. And Niamh?
Yeah, I think we're all very good. We're all passionate about our schools. We'll sell it well online, but I think actually coming in person, there's nothing like it, and actually experience it. I think experiencing the location, which is outstanding, but actually the biggest selling point are the girls, and actually meeting the students, who they are and what they do, I think is the biggest selling point. So I think coming to experience it for yourself is definitely worthwhile.
Thank you. And finally, Dominic?
Couldn't agree more with Niamh about meeting the pupils, the students. That's always what the big sell is. We've got a little phrase, we say, be inspired by what we have to offer, be incredible, get pushed to find, your path, whatever that might be. And it's a huge range of possibilities. And be yourself, be you, find who you are. And that's what we're all about. So I think that's evident really as soon as you arrive. We look terribly formal, but actually it's pretty warm and, dare I say it, pretty normal once you get inside the place. And I think that's probably the case for all of us. I would say any of our schools, come and have a look. You'll get that lovely flavour of exactly what kind of rich diet you're offered. And there are slight variations, but, I would hand on heart say these are all excellent schools you've managed to gather together, Chloe, today.
Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us on the podcast. I will say, having visited all the schools, the one thing that I say to every parent is go and visit, because until you go, you can't know. Thank you very much.